Bama's battleship is taking on water, but it's not sunk just yet. Meanwhile, the next great college football dynasty is on the rise in Athens, and Brian Kelly can talk in whatever accent he wants as long as he goes out and beats Alabama. He's got LSU running ahead of schedule. This is the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We're going to get right into it. I'm bringing on Director of Recruiting for On3, Chad Simmons. Chad, let's start in Athens. Tennessee comes to town, the #1 team in the country, and Georgia just dominates. But from the recruiting side of things, what got me interested was hearing about Venice, Florida five-star edge Damon Wilson making that trip. Now, this has kind of been a heated battle between Georgia and Ohio State. But after this game, after that atmosphere, who do you think has the edge with five-star Damon Wilson?
Yeah, Josh, I mean, this visit kind of materialized, the second half of last week and didn't really get locked in until probably Thursday evening into Friday, 100%, and I think obviously it was a huge win to get five-star edge Damon Wilson back on campus. Then for a game like that, the word is they broke the record for the decibel level of the noise inside Sanford Stadium. Like you said, Georgia dominated the #1 team in the country, controlled that game, controlled it defensively with a lot of guys that were playing backups at Damon Wilson's position. No Nolan Smith, the place that he would play if he went to Georgia. And I think this trip really opened Damon's eyes. Damon went into this visit with more like a business trip approach. He wasn't there to get the love from the coaches, wasn't there to get, wine and dine with dinners and go axe throwing and stuff like that. He was there to kind of put himself in that position. If he could play in that game for that team, what would that be like? And I think Georgia, really just the team, the scheme, the execution, the performance, the atmosphere knocked it out of the park, not just with Damon, but with his family. And I kind of hinted, a week ago, I thought Georgia was in a pretty good spot, better than what some people maybe had them at. And I leave this weekend feeling Georgia is the team to beat for Damon Wilson.
Wow. So what's up next for Wilson? Is he going to make it back to Columbus, Ohio before his final decision?
I think that's still to be determined. That visit to Columbus for the Michigan game at the end of the month has been discussed. But again, with that family, right now the team's #1. Venice starts playoffs this week. They won the state championship game a year ago. They want to get back to that game in December this year. Coming out of the weekend, Damon's hinted at a decision before that Ohio State-Michigan game. Again, he's talked about a decision, earlier this fall. They kind of put the brakes on that. Again, nothing's finalized, no date set, but I do think he's getting closer. I wouldn't be surprised if he committed before that Michigan-Ohio State game. If that happens, that's a very good sign for Georgia.
Yeah, that bodes really well for Georgia if he pops before that game. Tell us more. There was several five-star prospects in Athens, Georgia. What else do you got for us?
I mean, how long do you got, Josh?
We got about 5 minutes.
We could go on and on. But, look, I'll hit on two big names in that 2023 class that were there on official visits, Samuel Mpemba and then David Hobbs. Two guys, obviously Georgia preaches defense. Everybody talks about Kirby Smart being a defensive-minded head coach. We saw that defense perform at an extremely high level over the weekend against a high-powered Tennessee offense. Samuel Mpemba, I've had my pick on the On3 RPM for Georgia for some time. Coming out of this trip, I've heard nothing to change my feelings there. They knocked it out of the park with him. His family was in town. Again, there's no timeline for a decision just yet. Could he take it to December? Possibly, but I've heard rumors going to October into November decision. I think whenever he makes that, I like where Georgia's at for the five-star edge at IMG Academy. The big one here, I think, was David Hobbs. He just left Monday morning. We were chatting it up last night. He was axe throwing at 11 p.m. last night, eating dinner at the Chop Steakhouse with Trey Scott and Kirby Smart about 8:30, 9 o'clock. This could be the biggest visit, I think, of them all. Georgia, I think, came into this one, trailing not only Tennessee, but likely Alabama as well. I think Georgia at least passed Alabama this weekend. They may have passed Tennessee as well. Again, you have to go maybe let the visit high settle for a few days and then recheck your sources maybe mid to late week. But I talked to Hobbs himself this morning when he left. I talked to multiple sources throughout the weekend connected to Georgia. Everything went basically 10 out of 10 for Hobbs. And I think he liked what he saw in the team. He liked what he felt in the visit as far as the culture. And I think it's Georgia, Tennessee now battling for that top spot. And Georgia could be trending a little bit. Again, it's pretty quickly off the visit, but I like where Georgia's at coming off this visit.
Hobbs seems to take in these visits, and they make a major impact in his recruitment. I remember when he first made that trip to Tennessee, it felt like Tennessee had a lot of momentum. Then Alabama blew him out of the water with their official visit. Now Georgia. Does he have any other trips set up before his final decision?
No, he makes his decision on the 27th of this month for his mom's birthday.
Right.
He said he's not. I talked to him again literally like 20 minutes ago when we're shooting this right now. And he said he's not ruling out another game or two, but he would probably lean towards he's done with visits. He'll sit back, communicate with these three schools, talk to his family, and figure things out.
So have you put an expert pick in on the recruiting prediction machine?
I have not. With him, it's been, like you said, very fluid. I think, if I was picking a team leading heading into this weekend, I would lean probably towards Tennessee. Just that communication, the opportunity to play. We know his sister, a big-time basketball player in the 2024 class. She loves UT as well. It's a tight-knit family. So when he makes that decision, it is going to be probably his for the most part, but that family will have a big impact as well. So it's all about that family, sister, mom, parents, all getting together and figuring out what's the best spot for Davon. Georgia made a huge impact on that race this weekend.
All right. Well, there's some other prospects on campus as well. We highlighted some of the 5 stars, but there's also some committed prospects. And when I say committed, I mean they're not committed to Georgia. They're committed to other schools, but they were in Athens to see this game. And we're going to play a game that I like to call stick or flip. It's real simple. All you got to do, I'm going to tell you a prospect's name. You tell me if they're sticking to that school that they're committed to or if they're flipping. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get into it. Oklahoma 4-star wide receiver commitment Anthony Evans. Stick or flip?
Coming out of this trip, I think he flips. I like Georgia to get his commitment the first time around. It changed very late to Oklahoma, and he committed there. But right now, I would say flip to Georgia.
We're going to flip there. All right. Alabama 4-star running back commitment Justice Haynes.
Can I get phone a friend for this one or what? I mean, I'm telling you, look, he was there. I think, man, it's tough. I would lean towards sticking right now if I had to pick one. Mm-hmm. But look, Georgia's not going away. Communication's still there. He's still one to watch. But if I had to pick, I would say stick with Alabama right now.
We got a tentative stick there. Alabama 5-star safety commitment Caleb Downs. And Georgia's not the only one pressing for Caleb.
They're not. I was going to get to that. I mean, Alabama, I would say stick right now, but watch Ohio State. I don't think he ends up at Georgia. If he flips, I would lean towards Ohio State. Ohio State, it's real. The communication's there. The interest is there. So if I had to pick one, it'd be Ohio State, but I'll lean towards sticking right now.
All right. Louisville 4-star wide receiver commitment DeAndre Moore.
I'm going to say flip. He visits Texas this coming weekend as well. I don't think he ends up in this Louisville class. So I'll say flip to who to be determined. But I think George is very much in this, and I would lean that direction right now.
All right. All the names that I mentioned were at the game. This one, Auburn 4-star running back commitment Jeremiah Cobb, was not at the game, but Georgia is working to flip him. So I added him to the game. Stick or flip, Jeremiah Cobb?
He was there. Jeremiah wasn't
he was there.
And, with him, I would lean towards stick right now. He's going to be patient. He committed to Auburn, the in-state school, as the school. Yes, he did like the coaching staff. He likes Carnell Williams, but he wants to wait and see who the new hire is. But Georgia is very much there, but I would lean towards sticking. And Jeremiah definitely was in Athens. There's communication going on pretty heavy there too.
Do you think Carnell Williams being retained is the key for this recruitment?
It'd be a big part of it, but I think he wants to fit into the culture, new coaching staff's plans as far as an offensive weapon too. But I think he'll do his just play really the waiting game and see what happens at Auburn first before making that decision to flip or to stick.
All right, we mentioned a couple Alabama commitments as potential flips, and normally you don't really hear that. If you run around Twitter yesterday, you would think Alabama's done. You know, anytime they lose a game or two, the sky is falling. But Alabama may be down, but are they out? I mean, they still have the #1 recruiting class in America, but they seem a little vulnerable on the recruiting trail. How do you feel about Alabama right now in the 2023 class?
Yeah, I think they're in a vulnerable spot. I mean, they're playing Ole Miss this weekend. That's a big game for them to have to try to bounce back from a tough loss in overtime to LSU. That would be loss number 3 this season if Lane Kiffin can beat Nick Saban.
And Ole Miss is coming off of a bye week too.
They are. They're getting healthy. They're prepared. That offense lane run scares people like Nick Saban. I think this is a big weekend. Now, is the sky falling in Tuscaloosa? No, but that's the standard they set. When you're Nick Saban and you win those championships, and now they got knocked out of the SEC championship game pretty much. They're out of the playoff race this year. And that hasn't happened under Nick Saban. So it is a different type of season. But no, they're not going away. This class is not falling apart. I expect them to still finish strong. But I think this game this weekend is very big for Alabama, for this recruiting class. And I think for the overall feeling in Tuscaloosa that they need to win this game in Oxford this weekend, which is not easy.
Yeah, it's not. And speaking of needing to win games, man, Miami. Last week, we were all over Miami. We felt like, they might not be getting it done on the field, but man, are they getting it done on the recruiting trail? They landed 5-star plus corner Cormani McClain, and everything seemed like it was falling in place. They just needed to play a little bit better on the field. Well, they had their annual rivalry game at home against Florida State this weekend, and they went out and scored 3 points. They lost to the Seminoles 45-3, and they had a loaded visitor list on campus. Let me tell you, 5-star wide receiver Jalen Brown, 4-star defender Reuben Bain, 5-star wide receiver Brandon Innes, Mark Fletcher, 4-star corner Damari Brown. I mean, the list goes on, but they look terrible. So I got to ask you, does FSU's win over Miami on the road resonate with some of these in-state recruits, maybe even more than it did with Miami?
Yeah, I would lean towards yes to that right now. Now, I still like Miami for Damari Brown. He's a Miami legacy. He's been there countless times. I think that the relationships are in place there. And, you can look at it 2 different ways. Miami obviously needs players. It's still about the Jimmies and the Joes. You got to have guys. That's why I think you can look at it 2 different ways. The opportunity is there for all the guys you listed right there to probably come in and play like Saturday for that team. I mean, they scored 3 points, played 3 different quarterbacks. Offense was abysmal. FSU lays 45 on them offensively. The team, I don't want to say falling apart, but it's not in a good place right now. But this class could still come together in the end. I think Jalen Brown is one to watch with Florida State. I think Reuben Bain, obviously Florida State, Miami, Alabama, numerous schools are involved there. As well. One kid you didn't mention, Samson Okunlola, an elite offensive tackle from the Northeast. He was on campus. I still like Miami there as well. So a lot of these guys still see opportunities to get on the field, make a name for themselves, make an early impact. And I think that helps Miami, but that performance definitely didn't help Miami on the recruiting trail at all this weekend.
Yeah, and another 5-star prospect that Miami's involved with, I don't know how heavily involved with there anymore, is the #1 athlete in America, Nicholas Harbor. You were up in the Baltimore area on Friday to go see him. What did you learn talking to Harbor about his recruitment?
Yeah, as of right now, Miami has the final official visit for Harbor the week before the early signing day in December. And between now and then, he'll take OVs to LSU, Maryland, and Miami in that order. He's already been to South Carolina and Michigan for OVs. And, I talked to him for, a long period of time before practice, after practice, spent a lot of time with Harbor. Great kid, man. Well educated. Really expresses himself very well. And then talk to other sources around him too, not just at that school, but other people in the area. that are connected to him and his visits, been along with him sometimes and have relationships there. And what I took away from this weekend with him was Michigan is, I think, the favorite, with South Carolina running at number 2. And I would say keep an eye on Maryland, just the in-state local program. He's visited there double-digit times. He likes Coach Loxley, the opportunity there to run track, play football. Loxley was the first guy, he said, to bring up playing offense with him. And I think that resonated with him, thinking about Loxley might think about me as a person and my future on the track even more than just me helping his football program to keep me healthy, my body safe, so on. So I think that struck a chord with him and his family. But look, LSU's in this too. Miami will have a lot of ground to make up if they get that visit late in December. But I think Michigan and South Carolina are battling at the top right now. Don't sleep on Maryland and keep an eye on LSU.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is Michigan's big star. Like, they haven't really turned it on in recruiting, and Nicholas Harbor seems like their best chance at landing a 5-star this cycle. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how his visit to Miami goes, and we'll follow up with that, Chad. Thank you for joining us today on the Inside Scoop.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
Next up on the Inside Scoop from the Bengal Tiger, we have insider Shea Dixon. Shea, the Bayou was slamming this weekend. How are you feeling?
I've made it through. I did not rush the field, Josh. So I stayed in the press box and out of harm's way. So I'm good to go.
Yeah, I know in your younger days you would have been down there mixing it. Yeah. All right. Let's get right to it. Desmond Ricks, 5-star corner, one of the biggest prospects still remaining out there, was at LSU to take in that Bama game. And Alabama's one of the programs that's heavily recruiting him as well, along with Florida. What are you hearing coming out of this visit?
Your old neck of the woods, Josh, the IMG area. Yeah, look, they've been going after Desmond Ricks, one of the nation's top corners who reclassified really from the start since this new staff got here. And LSU's in a spot here where it's a multi-year rebuild at the corner position. They took a ton of transfers. They're trying to rely heavily on landing some guys in this class, and Ricks is up there near the top of the list. And look, getting him back to campus this past weekend, Josh, meant that he's visited LSU more than any other school in the calendar year. So you love that if you're an LSU fan, but what's next? Obviously, he's got 3 official visits, LSU being the last one in December before he signs in the early signing period. Alabama will get him to town for the Iron Bowl. Florida will get him to town in December. Then the Tigers get that final visit. So there's confidence brewing on the Bayou after the win. Does it mean he's committed? No, of course not. Still a long way to go there. But I think everyone that you would talk to right now would say if there is a leader, it's LSU.
Do you think because of the opponent, Alabama, do you think this win resonated a little bit more with him?
How could it not? I mean, I'm of the age-old adage in recruiting that one win, one loss doesn't make or break a recruitment, and I think we've seen that more times than not. But given that it's year 1 of Brian Kelly's tenure here in Baton Rouge, given LSU had not beaten Bama in Tiger Stadium since 2010, Josh, that's a long time. How old was Desmond Ricks then? That was, 13 years ago. So this was a massive win for the program, and you cannot deny that kids like that see it and see what's being built in Baton Rouge right now.
Yeah, and it's exciting. I mean, we saw 4-star safety Javian Toviano rush the field with the thousands of other fans after the game. That was one of the greatest videos. I saw it on Bengal Tiger yesterday. But 4-star recruit, he's not committed, saw how the game was ending, and he's on video, and as soon as the game ended, he made a sprint for the field. Okay, so is he committed or is he not committed?
Okay, here's the thing. Even silently, I'm not giving anything up here on his end, he's not committed. And sources I've talked to in Texas and Louisiana, close to the LSU program, everybody says, look, he's done everything but commit, including, as you said, hands around the family watching the final play, just like the rest of the fans. And as soon as they score the touchdown, he sprints down and rushes the field. Much like Ricks, he's visited LSU more than any other school. In fact, he saw some neutral site games for A&M in Texas. LSU is the only home game in a home stadium that he's been to this year, and he's been to multiple games. So he's still got some official visits ahead of him. I wouldn't say he's played games with the recruitment process. I think he's been pretty honest about, hey, I'm keeping things close to the vest. I want to wait it out till closer to signing day to make sure I've made the right decision. But whether it's talking to numerous people at On3, Sam Spiegelman, Billy Embody, you name them, he has repeatedly said that in his mind right now, he thinks he knows where he's going to go. Yeah. If we're tracking the actions, it's pretty clear that LSU has a very nice lead on the competition.
Yeah, if we're tracking the actions, I haven't seen him rush the field for any other program. But if there was to be a threat to LSU, what program would it be in Toviano's recruitment?
Well, look, Michigan got a visit earlier, but E.J. Holland, one of the On3 writers for Michigan, put in a pick for LSU. I don't think he'll end up going to the Wolverines. Ohio State's trying to host him. We'll see if he makes a visit. But it probably goes back to the Texas schools, right, Josh? I mean, he is a Lone Star State product who remains uncommitted. The Longhorns want him. The Aggies are recruiting him. You got to keep an eye on both those schools. But again, I go back to tracking the actions, and it's very clear that kind of his trend of trending towards LSU has just continued to pick up steam. I'm with the On3 RPM here that has LSU as a heavy leader going into the final month.
Yeah, and LSU's recruiting momentum really started picking up even before this game against Alabama, but we're at full tilt now that they beat Bama at home. So LSU's landed 4 commitments in the last, 4 days? So what are you hearing now in terms of LSU's momentum on the recruiting trail? And do you think that they could get aggressive and maybe go out and flip some other commitments at other schools?
I think that they're trying. This past weekend, they hosted a number of kids who are committed to other schools. We've talked about it on the site with 25 commits right now. You mentioned 4 in 4 days. That was for the 23 and 24 classes. But there's no cap. You just have to stay under the 85 scholarship limit. LSU is already battling scholarship issues, so getting to 85 or staying under 85, I should say, won't be an issue. I'll give you 2 new names, though, and Sam Spiegelman broke this news early Monday morning. Texas A&M commits Bravion Rogers and Javion Thomas were both on campus this weekend as somewhat silent visitors. Nobody knew they were in. So they are looking around, even the SEC, to see who they could flip here in the coming month before National Signing Day arrives.
All right. Well, that's a lot of commitments in 4 days. Maybe today's a new day. Maybe we could see him go 5 for 5, Shay?
Oh, wow, Josh, why would you do that to me? No, I'm trying to take a break.
All right, before we get you out of here, LSU has the number 5 ranked class in America right now in the 2023 cycle. Do you think that they can improve upon that? And how high can this class reach in 2023?
Look, they still have a Nicholas Harbor official visit coming up in December. We talked about Ricks. We talked about Toviano. Isaac Smith out of Mississippi still out there. Then we mentioned guys like Rogers and Thomas who are committed to other programs but certainly still looking around. I could see this class, if the dominoes fall right, climb up to 4, potentially 3, which would be a massive first year under Brian Kelly, right? I mean, look, they far exceeded expectations on the field. Now they're doing that in recruiting as well with the top 5 class.
To see LSU in the top 5 in Brian Kelly's first year, I mean, the way that this thing started, it looked like, hey, maybe he's not a fit here. Like, we might have to move on from this, but he's settled in, he's in his groove, and Brian Kelly, dare I say, he's ahead of schedule at LSU right now?
Absolutely. And I think that only the naysayers were saying that it wasn't a fit. LSU needed someone like Brian Kelly, a CEO type, to come in, build the foundation again, reset the foundation, and talent and coaching can take it the rest of the way. Far ahead of schedule. Look, Vegas thought this was a 6 or 7 win team. You're 7-2, in control of the SEC West, possibly en route to Atlanta in year 1. Nobody saw this coming. LSU always recruits well, but for Brian Kelly to come in and secure a top 5 class, which they have right now, in year 1, what more can you say? A
Remarkable.
Home run hire so far for Scott Woodward on the recruiting trail and on the field.
Yep. All right, Shea Dixon, Bengal Tiger, thanks for hanging out with us.
All right, Josh. See you next time.
See ya. Up next on the Inside Scoop, we have national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman. Sam, I want to start off with 5-star plus defensive lineman David Hicks. He committed to Texas A&M a couple months ago, but when he committed, everybody thought that he was going to end up being an Oklahoma Sooner. He picks the Aggies. The rest is history, right? Right?
Yes, or so we thought. I would say since the summertime, Oklahoma had emerged as perhaps the front runner for the 5-star defensive tackle, David Hicks Jr. But obviously, we know how this story unraveled with Texas A&M getting him on campus twice on back-to-back weekends. And, squeezing past Oklahoma when he made an October decision, which, was originally scheduled to make an announcement in January. The official visit that he had scheduled since August was for Bedlam. And from talking to people in the state of Texas over the weekend, Oklahoma has not, stopped recruiting David Hicks. In fact, they've offered his teammate at Katy Paytow, Damian Sanford, who is also a Texas A&M commitment. Oregon has also offered. You can tell that Oregon, Texas, and of course Oklahoma are the three schools that have continued to maintain dialogue with David Hicks. From talking to people close to the five-star defensive tackle, I don't know if they're going to be able to move him off this Texas A&M commitment. I think they're trying to capitalize on some on-the-field woes that A&M is having, but Oklahoma is still continuing to recruit Hicks, trying to recruit his teammates, and they are going to get him on campus for an official visit later this month.
Is he going to sign in December?
I believe so.
Okay, so we got about 6 weeks left in his recruitment. We know he's going to make it to Oklahoma. Any other trips you think he's going to take?
Well, like I said, Texas has continued to talk to him about visiting. Nothing is set. Texas has always been kind of playing from behind, especially with A&M and Oklahoma kind of leading the charge among the regional teams. But Oregon has been pushing. He's already taken his official visit to Oregon. That was one of his 3 summer officials, along with Miami and Michigan State. I do think there's a chance that he gets back to Oregon. He would have to obviously go on his own dime, which would signal some legitimate interest. Dan Lanning recruited him at Georgia. He's recruited him at Oregon. He's had a relationship with Mario Cristobal at Oregon before that. For kids at David Hicks' age, they grew up watching these Oregon Ducks under, a whole different coaching regime. But there was a lot of these kids' childhood dream schools as Oregon. So I think that they do have a decent shot. I don't expect him to sign anywhere but with A&M, but I think his mind is considering some of these schools.
All right, so A&M still holding on, but watch out. There's some visits on tap. We'll keep an eye on this one, and maybe down the road we'll play sticker flip with David Hicks, but not today. Not today, all right? I want to talk to you about 6'6", 280-pound Texas offensive tackle commit Trevor Gooseby. Everybody's looking for offensive line help right now, and the Sharks are in the water. Who else is recruiting Gooseby and trying to flip him from Texas?
Yeah, Kyle Flood and Steve Sarkisian were both at Trevor Gooseby's game on Thursday night. They are working hard to hold on to this very intriguing, very sizable offensive tackle. I mean, Josh, you know that true offensive tackles do not grow on trees. And when you have a 6'6", 285, 290 pounder, and you're Kyle Flood, you're dreaming that could be Arch Manning's blindside protector one day. And offensive line has been such a main concern for Texas as they rebuild their roster. But the SEC has come calling over the last week. Florida coaches and Alabama coaches have been at Melissa High School. The interest is starting from both those schools. No visits have been set. And in fact, Gooseby will be in Austin this weekend after both those Texas coaches went to see him last week. He's considering going back to Austin for the Baylor game later in November. If they get both those visits, I like where Texas sits with Gooseby, but Alabama and Florida, the interest is still early. No offers have been handed out. They want to gauge Gooseby's interest as well. They're trying to add some really intriguing talent along the offensive line. Billy Napier loves big guys just like Kyle Flood. Nick Saban has made a living off of getting big guys like Trevor Gooseby. So this could get interesting. Right now, I would say the interest is light, but this could be a storyline that picks up coming forward.
Yeah, we'll see if Tennessee can solidify this recruitment when they get him on campus. But if he takes these late visits to the SEC country, watch out. One other flip that we've been watching is 5-star Peyton Bowen, the safety out of Texas. Did he make it to Notre Dame, the team that he's committed to? I know he was supposed to take an unofficial visit there for this game against Clemson. Did he make it to South Bend?
Yeah, he was there, and he was on hand for the primetime win for Notre Dame.
Well, that's a huge development for Notre Dame, getting him back on campus because they used their official visit during the summer. Coming out of this trip, do you think that he shuts it down, or do you think Peyton Bowen continues to take these visits?
Yeah, it's been all quiet on the Peyton Bowen front since he's returned from South Bend. You've seen a lot of the other Notre Dame commitments, open up and speak about how much that game means to them and what it means in their recruitment. It's a November visit. An unofficial visit, like you mentioned, that they're there to see the future of Notre Dame. And I think it worked for a lot of Notre Dame commitments that might have been on the fence. Peyton Bowen has been quiet, and I know that he is still going to visit Texas A&M and Oklahoma here in the next couple of weeks. We are not done in his recruitment, and I do not expect him to shut things down after this visit. I do think that Notre Dame might have improved their positioning. As I've mentioned before, Marcus Freeman was his lead recruiter as a defensive coordinator, and he just got a colossal win in South Bend. Peyton, his little brother Eli, all the Notre Dame commitments, Peyton Bowen's family, all on hand for this. Almost, reminding him why he committed to Notre Dame in the first place in big game environments. And, seeing Cade Klubnik play for Clemson, that's someone he faced in the state championship game last year. So I think that does, click with him that, this is the kind of players that I'll be playing against potentially here in this environment. I don't think Oklahoma is done. I don't think A&M is done. And I know that those visits are still online, and those will be telling before he makes a decision here, probably in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
All right. Well, this visit last weekend in Notre Dame was crucial if they're going to weather the storm between now and early signing day. We'll continue to follow Peyton Bowen and all the recruits that you talked about. Thanks for joining us today, Sam.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Josh.
See ya. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.